Welcome to Legacy Unscripted, sponsored by Progeny Coaching. This is the podcast where sports and business collide. I'm your host, Russ Katzman, and here we'll skip the fluff and get straight to the hustle. From athletes turned entrepreneurs to impact-driven business leaders, we dive into the wins, the lessons, and some of those failures that make our legacies worth living. Today, I welcome Kareem Rae, CEO and co-founder of One Soccer Nation. Kareem, good morning.
Russ, thank you so much for having me on.
No problem. It's a pleasure to have you here. Now, talk to us a little bit about One Soccer Nation. Give me a minute or two about what it is.
So our goal at One Soccer Nation is to give unknown superstars the chance to go pro, and how we plan on doing that is by launching our own professional soccer team, starting off first in the United States, and then eventually grow into a multi-club ownership.
Gotcha. And why is that a passion for you?
I've played soccer for 20 years, all the way from grassroots to semi-pro levels in England, France. Last time I played for was Naples United FC, which is the light blue jersey right there. That's in Florida, Naples. They play in the NPSL Division 4 and the U.S. Soccer Pyramid. So it's a semi-professional league. Working up the ranks, came across a few barriers. The biggest barrier that I came across was my Canadian passport. When you're in a foreign country and you want to get paid for what you love to do, you have to either have a work visa, which I didn't know, or a passport from that country. And if I had that guidance, that mentorship within the soccer space, then, planning before getting myself in these situations, then I could have been properly equipped to, think, oh, should I go to the United States or should I stay and focus on Canada and try to go pro in Canada? And that's even another topic in itself where, growing up in Canada, we're now a soccer nation, but before, in my time, I was born in 2000, growing up in Canada playing soccer, there was no professional soccer league to look up to go pro in our backyard. It wasn't until 2019 where they came out with the Canadian Premier League. So, just growing up, I was always looking outside of my country to go pro. And again, that was one of my biggest hurdles. And I'll just share a quick story.
Yeah, please.
When I was playing at Naples United FC, my coach at the time, Matt Poland, we built a great relationship, and he was moving up after the season to Division 3, a NISA team at the time called Chicago House, if I remember correctly. But they for sure played in the NISA league, which was Division 3. Players were getting paid in that league. And Matt, we had a few conversations. He said, look, I'm making the move. You should come and try out. And I saw that as my best opportunity, because now I'm going to have someone that's going to be on the inside to assist me with going pro. Put a word in for me. And I go look at the website for the trial information to sign up. And I see that they're only taking U.S. passport citizens and green card holders, which I wasn't at the time. I am now since last year, but at that time, back in 2023, I wasn't. And again, that was a roadblock for me. So, now with One Soccer Nation, we want to make sure that we're creating an opportunity to give the best players the chance of going pro. And as mentioned before, with launching our own professional soccer team, starting off first in the United States, we'll have 25 slots to sign players to professional contracts. Right now, we're working on all the back end stuff as we speak right now, as securing the market rights from the league, raising capital, acquiring a field, etc.
Gotcha. So basically what started as your passion growing up has now become your lifestyle business, right? You're going to be doing this from now till whenever. And I love the story. We talked about this previously during our intro, but I love the story of kind of that growing up, idolizing the game, wanting to play more in the game. Like you said, you did it in Canada. You didn't really have those teams to look up to. Now to the point of where you're going to be owning one of those teams, or it's going to be a tremendous story, tremendous success story. You get to pass that on to all the kids that you work with, those that have that same dream, that have an opportunity. Maybe they're not really sure how to make it happen. Your lessons you get to pass on to them. I love that idea.
Yeah, absolutely. I got to give a big shout out to our co-founder Jay Waterman, who's been a mentor for me since
Yep.
2018, and has planted a lot of seeds. If I look back at, it really starts 2018, where I was working at his company Block Station down here in Canada in Toronto, shadowing him, learning from him. He planted a few seeds. So 2018 was the first one where he said you should write a book, and I said, why? Right? He's like, well, do you know how to go pro? And I said, no. He said, well, you should document the steps that you need to take in order to get there. And at 18, your mind's kind of, or for me at least, my mind was all over the place as a young man. But going through the process of creating the book helped me structure and become more organized and have more clarity of bringing a thought into reality of a vision. And then again, the value that it was bringing to myself selfishly, becoming an author, which is amazing, but also being able to share value with others around the world in regards to a book. A book can be created once, but printed a million times over and shared with millions around the world. So that was an amazing experience.
Yeah.
And then 2023, and then after that, he planted the podcast, which I've been doing since 2020. So over the last 5 years, I've done about 250 interviews with it's the Soccer Niche podcast, the One Soccer Nation podcast, where we interview individuals on and off the field within the soccer space. Everyone, club owners, sophisticated, high net worth individuals, investors, um, coaches, scouts, agents, players, everyone a part of the beautiful game, which has been amazing to provide me with a whole 360 perspective. I love learning to build up my knowledge, as well as, again, we're sharing that through podcasts and YouTube. Um, uh, so again, being able to learn for myself, and then also be able to share that, I always like to provide value. And then lastly, 2023, where I came across that last hurdle, which was, again, playing in the UK, playing in France, playing in the US, and holding a Canadian passport. Again, biggest barrier, the passport. Um, Jay, and sorry, I actually want to share this other story with you too, Russ. Naples United was owned by individuals that were from South America
Mm.
that became U.S. citizens, and um, their goal was to bring players, which they did. They brought players, a lot of players from South America that were great players, quality players, and I'll make it quick actually. So the player that played in my position, I was better than the player that was in my position, and I worked hard. I came to every practice, had a positive attitude, positive mindset. This is my time's going to come. This player started over me every single time, and at that time I was playing right back
Right.
defense. And obviously, me and Jay, we talk frequently, and he's like, stay on it, stay on it. And then this is where a third seed. So I've said two so far. So book was the first seed. Second seed was the podcast. Now the third seed was, why don't you start your own professional soccer club, right? And I was like, again, it was like kind of when he told me about the book, it was like, who am I to write a book? Like I didn't
Yeah.
even fully go pro yet. Like I'm just a semi-pro player, right? I'm like, in my mind, it's like, who am I to write a book? So the same thing kind of happened with the club. Who am I? I don't have the money. I don't know anything about owning and operating a club. Like, who am I? So it was a bit easier to transit to move on the idea faster because I already had that experience with the book, and I was able to accomplish that goal. So that builds on confidence, and the podcast builds on the confidence. And then starting a club was like, okay, the attitude was a bit different. Instead, it was who am I? That kind of lasted for maybe a few days, and then turned over pretty quickly. And I attacked it right away. And I started to figure out, started to Google. We have access to the internet now, so everything's on the internet.
Of course.
Started Google, YouTube, listen to guys that are doing it, and then I started reaching out to the leagues. That's where you purchase the franchise, and I started to do a deep dive. And to be honest with you, Ross, it's been a heck of a journey. Um, and I'd have to say that I'm super proud of myself to where we have gone, because it's definitely not an easy path to trail, especially on your own. So, and making sure you have the resources, the right information, and the right people in your corner, and the right systems is truly important.
Yeah, no, that's tremendous. I mean, the lessons in this, I can't wait till we cut this up into shorts because there's going to be a lot of stuff that comes out of it. Even in just that last little monologue that you had, starting back with Jay, right? Finding somebody who's that mentor that's been there before, right? I always tell people they should have both a mentor and a coach, right? That mentor is that person who's been there before. They know what you're going through. They were there a few years ago, and maybe you've got some things that they wish they'd have done that they can get you to do because that's one of those things that if they could go back, that's one thing they'd change, right? It's kind of like talking to your younger self, except it's somebody else. And that mentor is somebody that you just kind of follow what they're doing, look at what they're doing, learn from their lessons, and go along the way. But a coach is somebody that's really kind of there with you along the journey, side by side, holding you accountable. That third party perspective, that person that maybe doesn't have the same relationship with you that the mentor has. It's a little bit more independent, so that they can provide that insight from an outside perspective, maybe from almost like a board of advisory type of perspective, and saying, you know what, have you considered this or have you considered that, as opposed to a mentor who might say, well, if I were to do it, I'd do it this way. So that's
Exactly.
kind of the first lesson that comes out of it. The second one, the book idea, I think is tremendous. It's interesting because they say that the best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago. The second best time was right now. Uh, I know a ton of us would go back and say, if I could document this journey, I should, because there's so many things I learned along the way. You don't at the time. To your point, who am I to document? But who's going to read anything that I have? There's no value in this until you get through it and you realize there's a ton of value in what you were experiencing, even the lows, right? Even the challenges along the way, the passport issues, who you had to call, who you had to get a hold of, what strings you had to pull, what networking individuals you need to try to get in touch with so that they can call so and so, who can call so and so, and get you where you need to be. Um, that whole idea of documenting that journey along the path for future generations is tremendous. And I give it to Jay for asking you to do so. And a podcast is the same kind of thing. It's interesting because the podcast is conversations with those that you network with along the way, and those things we're going to talk about today. A year from now, we may not be talking about it at all. It might be something new, right? It may, whether it be new technology, new regulations within the sport, new challenges to starting a new team, whatever that may be, right? And then, as you've learned, I mean, pulling podcast individuals in that are relevant to what you're going through right now. So that's good stuff. Um,
Thank you.
Talk to me about where you are with the soccer club. How close are you? Have you launched? Do you have a team? Do you have the ownership group, the leadership group? Where are you?
Yeah. So right now at One Soccer Nation, we have a team of 10 advisors. Where we are with the project is we've identified a market. We did market research in 6 different markets. We landed on a market, which I'm not going to
Yeah.
share until we go public with it. Um, the league, we're looking at entering into the United Soccer League, aiming for Division Two, so USL Championship, right underneath the MLS. We identified a site that's currently a baseball stadium,
Hmm.
3,000 seat capacity that we're looking at acquiring. That's currently owned by the city, and from our advisors, from our architects, which is Labella Associates. It's a 2,000 employee architect firm that's working on across 20 plus projects in the United States. And one of the biggest projects that they're working
Mm-hmm.
on is a $300 million project. Um, they have advised us that one of the sites that we're looking at, which is the baseball stadium I just mentioned, is currently being used by schools, and they have said that they're most likely losing $1 million on it
Wow.
every year. So really, we're working on putting a strong pitch together where we have a presentation. We're updating our financial models. We're going to be putting together a PPM very soon. We just brought on a partner, Map Solo, to assist with mapping, um, human behavior, how far certain things are away from the stadium, foot traffic. So again, we're putting together a very strong pitch to the city, and on a high level, it's basically, you know, and we're going to the city with, not only ourselves, we've been operating since 2022 on Soccer Nation, but we're going with experienced partners like Labella Associates and United Soccer League that are going to be coming with us alongside to speak to the city, whether that's going to be virtual or in person, which we're aiming to set that meeting up in April. And basically, the pitch is, hey, look, there's this liability that you guys currently have. We want to take that liability and turn it into an asset, start generating revenue, and most importantly, tax dollars for the city.
Yeah.
So bring the stadium back to life. And I'm pretty sure as we spoke about it, there's a lot of soccer has been growing from the last 10 plus years. It's been growing.
Yep.
And it's going to continue to grow because you got some pretty big events happening in the United States. You have the 2025 FIFA World Cup, the 2026 Men's FIFA World Cup. It's going to be hosted by Canada, the United States, and Mexico. After that, you have the 2028 Olympics in LA, and potentially 2031 of FIFA Women's World Cup in the United States, potentially, if they win the bid. So there's a lot of big events that are going to be happening in the United States. And if we just focus on the 2026 World Cup, over 1 billion people watch the beautiful game. Soccer is the most watched sport, or other people call it football. It's the most watched sport in the world. So, I mean, the impacts, we all know it's going to be positive. Everyone's trying to put their ships in the right area to catch the wave. And we know it's going to be positive. How big is it going to be? We can only predict, but it's going to be massive. I think Leo Messi down in Inter Miami at David Beckham's team is a good glimpse of, what the World Cup could be. I mean, you're going to have all the superstars around the world in the United States. So it's going to be interesting. It's going to be exciting. And that's what we're doing there right now, too. We want it to get in for 2026. I think, if the city's on board and it's a green light, then our timeline is still 2 years, so it'd be 2027. And I'll just share a last point. I love soccer, but in regards when we talk about soccer investments, investors are not just only investing to soccer. A lot of investors are investing into the real estate that comes with the soccer. So we talk about the stadium, building minimum of 5,000 seated stadium. And soccer is really just the anchor or the centerpiece per se. And then this could really turn in quickly to a mixed use development. So a lot of projects, for example, can have retail, commercial, hospitality. And if we look at, for example, a project like that's currently being built, that's supposed to be up for this year. I had the opportunity to interview Brett Johnson, which is Rhode Island FC, 11,000 plus seated stadium, 400 apartment units right beside the stadium, right across, and they're building a bridge, right? So I actually listened to an interview with him yesterday. I like to listen in to the guys that own and operate teams, and these guys are creating a place where people can work, live, and play, right? Yep. So, and thankfully, because of podcasting, it's like a hack to networking per se. If done correctly, authentically, real, and transparent and honest. A lot of the guys I currently speak to now, I try to keep it more so on the club ownership club side. One of the best advices that I've gotten from a guy it's not one of the only, but it's up there in some of the best advice. It comes from Ira Jersey, owner of a club in New Jersey, and he was trying to raise capital for just the soccer side, and it wasn't going as well as it is now with a whole mixed use project. We're talking about, the last time I spoke to him, he's talking about 100 acres, building a soccer stadium, other fields, retail, and the site that they were looking at acquiring was right beside a train station that gets 4,000. I don't know what the exact wording for this, but they have 4,000 people that use that park their cars there to use the train. Right. So that area is used to traffic, and if they get that, it's right beside the train station. So transportation access to that facility would be very easily accessible, and people are used to going there. So I want to cut it off here because I feel like I keep going on, but you know, that's what investors really like. They like the real estate because sometimes the club may lose, and what's going to offset that loss is the real estate.
Well, it's interesting because you see more and more of these professional clubs doing exactly that, right? Even when they're remodeling their stadiums, they're not just remodeling the stadium; they're remodeling the area around the stadium because they've finally found. I don't know how this wasn't discovered, 30, 50, 70 years ago, but when you have an attraction to a professional event, we get more money when we can get the people around it, right? And it's not just the vending. I mean, Arthur Blank did this several years ago when he built the new Mercedes-Benz Stadium, right? What did he do? He dropped the hot dog prices to like $1 and the beer for a couple bucks and that kind of stuff. And he actually sold more in revenue doing it that way than he did before that, right? Because people are willing to come into the stadium hungry now. They're not eating outside because it's cheaper. They're now coming into the stadium hungry and they're eating more there than they did before. And the same idea goes for the areas around them, right? Once we've got them there, let's give them something to do while they're waiting for traffic to clear out. Let's give them something to do while they're waiting to go into the game. Let's get some shops along here. Let's do some retail. Let's do some sports pubs, any of that kind of stuff. Some people that want to come down and can't get the scalping tickets or the last minute tickets to the game, let's keep them down there for the sporting pub or whatever we've got around the area. You see these entire destinations being built around these sporting events, and it's all to keep that captured audience down there as long as we can. So I love the idea of that. I think it's tremendous from a sales perspective for you to talk to the city and say, look, we're not just building a soccer stadium. We are building a destination, a multi-use destination we're remodeling it to become a multi-use destination that will now provide this type of things to the economy. And then you talk about how you can grow the area out, et cetera. Talk to me about those conversations with investors. This is something that, regardless of the industry you're in, is always a trial for young entrepreneurs. It's quite a impending thing for them to go through of, you know what, I need money, they've got money, how can I get it? So talk to me about the investing process.
So thankfully, I had the guidance from our co-founder, Jay Waterman. He's raised capital over the years, and he's been an entrepreneur for a few decades, I think, about 3+ decades. And being able to have access to his systems to be able to assist with the raising capital process has been extremely helpful. So speaking from my experience of raising capital specifically for One Soccer Nation, I've been able to successfully raise capital from family and friends on a safe agreement. So far, 3 Canadian investors, and we secured our first American investor last year, December. And um, that's where I had to do a Form D filing with the U.S. SEC
Sure.
within 15 days. And luckily, the investor was from Florida, which you don't have to do a state filing because sometimes you have to do a state filing. So, in regards to raising capital, I think there's a whole bunch of steps. That's a different beast, a different process in itself. So, my experience going through it is it's all about repetition. And when you start something, you're usually not going to be good at it. So the more you do it, the better you're going to get at it. So in regards to the presentation that you currently have, it's going to evolve throughout time for startups. Right. Your pitching style is going to evolve the more times you do it. Your confidence is going to grow. And then when we talk about, systems, one of Jay's platforms called illions.com. So, it's basically spelled millions.com, but take out the M. Sure. So ILLIONS. Yeah, it's a blockchain accounting ERP system that I currently use it can do anything from entering in bills, paying bills, reconciliation, email blast, to managing a cap table, issuing securities, signing agreements. So it's a very large system that that's super blessed to be able to have access to and use for One Soccer Nation um, to streamline a lot of the things that we do. When we talk about, keeping up, what is it called? Making sure my lead list is organized and updated. Have that in the system as well to keep track where we are with certain investors and notes, etc. So that's been very helpful as well. And we spoke a little bit about this last time offline. You know, a lot of the things that I know now, I wasn't planning to learn or know in entrepreneurship or in business. I come as I'm first an athlete. I love the soccer side, the athletic side, training, working out, playing, etc. Being tech, having business requires you. If you're a small startup, it requires you to do a lot of different tasks. Um, Accounting, if you don't hire an accountant, right? If you're trying to manage a low budget per se, um, uh, taxes, you got to do taxes. So basically, what I'm saying is, there's a lot of things that I didn't know I had to learn that I know now that I learned that I didn't know I was going to know. So if I had to say with this is the last thing I'll say to you, Russ, is that I told you when I was like 18, 19, I thought entrepreneurship was like the coolest
Yeah.
thing. And as time went by, I was like, this is actually not, it's still fun because I love it, but there's hard times and there's things that are going to be hard to do that you're not going to want to do sometimes, but you're going to have to do it because or else you're not going to move forward. So I think, what I would say to people that want to start have a startup. I don't know if I said this to you, Russ, but you know, I think it's important. I would like to hear your thoughts on this too. I think it's important to love what you do, and I think I shared this story with you too. Is that one of the interviews I did, Marcus Wofferson, owner of Sarasota Paradise in USL two, that just moved up to USL1, so third division professional soccer in the US. Um, he started a team in COVID. I said, "Why did you do that?" He's like, "I had the passion. I love it." I'm summing it up. These are not his exact words. He loved it, regardless. He's like, "There's always going to be ups and downs." He's like, "As long as you love it, you're going to stick through it." So if you love something, you're going to stick through it through the ups and downs, and that's what really One Soccer Nation is to me, and soccer overall.
Yeah, I mean, you summed up a whole lot in that too. I mean, the the first thing I always tell my clients, when I'm talking to them and going through kind of the sales process on my end is, you know, uh, what's your purpose? What are you passionate about? If you're not passionate about what you're doing, then you're doing the wrong thing, right? You have to be passionate and you have to be coachable. And if I can find those two things, then we can figure out how to get you where you need to be. But you've got to be passionate and you got to be coachable. And then comes the all that other stuff, and that comes the coachability needs to happen because of all those things that you didn't learn along the way, right? Because you didn't know accounting, you didn't know taxes, you didn't know how to hire and fire somebody, you didn't know how to pitch yourself or pitch to investors or some of that. You have to learn that along the way, and so you have to be open to learning some of those kind of things. And yeah, I just had a conversation with a networking group. I just presented to a networking group here in Vegas last week, I think. Um, and what I told them was we were talking about all of these roles that you play in the business or all the hats that you wear. And I say it's not that you shouldn't expect to wear all those roles. The number one thing that nobody expects in entrepreneurship is how much they have to sell, right? You constantly need to be selling, right? Whether it's selling yourself, selling your business, selling your ideas, whatever it is, you're always a salesperson. But there are so many other roles, some of which you just listed, that we have to fulfill. And it's not that I don't expect a solopreneur or a new entrepreneur to have to do all those roles. I just want them to do it with intent. Because what happens is we get so hung up in the day to day and fighting fires and answering emails and all these things that pop up that we go from being the accountant to being the HR guy to being the salesperson to being the HR guy to being the accountant to being and then somewhere along the lines it's the stuff that I'm really passionate about, and then I get pulled back into the accounting and then into sales and et cetera, right? I just want you to be intentional with how you can do that as much as possible. Okay, I'm on a podcast. This is kind of my sales marketing hat, so I'm going to put that on now for a while. I'm going to take that off, and when we're done with the podcast, maybe you switch over and you answer a couple emails, and you're fighting fires on the operations side a little bit, and then you get a question from an investor. Well, we got to stop doing that, and we got to put our investment hat on and say, what do I need to, etc. I think entrepreneurs just get in the habit of not doing that intentionally, and they can get easily overwhelmed and pulled back by the process. And to your point, if they don't have the passion, that's usually when they tend to break.
Yeah. And when I think about everything that you had said, Russ, I think it's so important to have a mentor or a coach like yourself because you've been through it. You know what it is. And for a first time entrepreneur, they're not going to know what it is. And they're going to, again, there's going to be hard times. And it's always good to have that guidance because everything that you had just said, if I didn't have a mentor, I probably wouldn't have went down this path that I went down. So, I mean, if you're going to go down it, it's always good to have someone that's going to be there that has been there, that has done it, and that's able to give you, to guide you through that process. It's way better than going. You can go at it firsthand, but it's better to always have that coach, mentor, partner there because it could remove some of the weight.
Yep. All right. So give me the one top lesson that you learned along the way. You've been in this a handful of years. We talked a little bit about the things you had to learn, the people you needed to meet, etc. But what was the one thing that you learned that made the biggest difference for you?
I think you don't have to know everything. So when you were just talking just now, um, and I was listening, what came to my mind was my team. And when you ask me that question, I think about again my team. So I have about 10 advisors, um, um, and it's important to surround yourself with experts and good people that have a good track record. So that's what I've been able to do, which is truly a blessing um, because I'm not in it alone. Um, so I think it's important to surround yourself with individuals that are going down the same path that you are, as well as building out a team. Um, so for me, I don't know everything. So we have a sponsorship guy, we have a ticket sales expert, we have legal, sports
Yep.
legal advisor, um, government relations and investment advisor. So I've made sure to cover all our angles or all sides that I don't have expertise in that we need support in. And again, these are relationships that do take time to build. But what I've been able to do is build a brand, which is One Soccer Nation with time. It does take time, um, you know, and people see the passion. They see the love that I have for the game, and again, the authenticity, the honesty, the transparency, the vision that we're working towards building, and they want to be a part of it. So that's what we've been able to build, and and I think the other thing too is I work extremely hard and smart. I always like to add in smart because it's one thing to work hard and not. You can work hard and not be doing something
Right.
productively. But if you're, I like to, oh yeah, again, work hard and smart, and people see that. People on my team see that as well, and they want to support. They want to see the vision come to life. They're passionate about soccer too. So I'm truly grateful and truly blessed to have great people around me to be able to cover spots that I can't.
So it's interesting you bring that up because it's a it's typical for people to tell entrepreneurs you got to get out and grind. You got to get out and put the work in. I think there was a quote from I think it was Shannon Sharp really that made the comment. Yeah, I forget who he was talking about. Somebody in the NFL who was complaining that they didn't get where they needed to be, and he says, you can't get mad at the success you didn't get for the work that you didn't put in, right? And I love that quote, and I think it speaks to entrepreneurs as well. Is, if you're not going to put the work in to try to make this successful, to make yourself better, to learn the things you need to do, to go out and have the conversations so you get better at pitching, whatever it is, if you're not willing to put that work in, then you can't complain about the success you didn't get. At the same time, there is a difference, right? Just doing the work, just doing the things that maybe you're comfortable with. Maybe for instance, I'm really good at strategy. Maybe I just spend all my day strategy and I don't get out and sell. I'm busy, I'm working, but I'm not working on the right things. So talk to me from your perspective about that differentiation between hard work and smart work. What's an example of working smarter rather than just putting more work in?
That's a great question. It has me thinking. So, okay, I got it. So you gotta focus on the tasks that are going to move the needle forward. So, for example, that I could have 5 tasks, but you got to prioritize the tasks that are most important at that time. So, um, for example, like right now, um, I got some accounting to do, some bills to enter in to finish up some reconciliation. But I know between the time of my schedule between 1 p.m. Eastern to 2:30 p.m. Eastern, I have a podcast. So I got to make sure that, okay, I'm prioritizing this podcast and moving the bills back in the priority list towards after, doing it after the podcast, because I had agreed with you that I'm going to come on your podcast. So I have to make sure that I'm doing what I'm saying that I'm going to do. And then after anything that, any other task that I have, I can complete that after this priority of mine.
Yeah.
So I think it's important to prioritize what you need to get done in the right time and get it done, um, so that you can move forward. The other thing is to I would say remove distractions. Um, so I've gone really good at staying organized. And you mentioned emails. I think, there's a lot of emails. So I have a super clean email, super clean, organized folder. Also a little bit automated with some filters.
Yep.
I use Gmail. I think it's important to say I've always been a yes man, a yes person. I think I was what they call people pleaser before. That's I've gotten better at saying no and not being a people pleaser. It's important to, and I've been listening to Sam Ovens on repeat a little bit. Remove distractions. Stay focused on one thing. That's what I would say. And that one thing for me is One Soccer Nation, and anything that's attached to One Soccer Nation. So I really stress that, because we get distracted with life, family, activities, all that stuff. But you got to sacrifice. I mean, there's a book that I just finished reading by someone that I interviewed, Jeremiah White, former professional player in MLS, U.S. men's national team, played across the world. He wrote a book, 30-page book. And he talks about, like, people that have done amazing things. And it's like, I'm going to keep it to sport. Like, if I say Michael Jordan, you're going to think, you could visualize Michael Jordan. Why did he become so great? Because he sacrificed. He was obsessed. He focused. Yeah. Like Pele, there's millions of players that have played soccer. This is my favorite one. There's millions, but there's not that many that have become as great as Pele or Maradona or Messi. Why is that? Because they focused on one thing and sacrificed everything else. So I think that's what's extremely important: prioritization and sacrifice. And I like to say, keep my blinders on and just focus, because everything else is not pushing the needle forward, and you have to remove it. So that's what I've been able to do. And I'm stressing it because I think it's so important if you want to move as fast as possible.
Well, and it's probably part of why you're as successful as you are, because I meet a lot of entrepreneurs who if you think about the carousels, the old carousels, and they had that brass ring that you go to reach for, a lot of entrepreneurs I reach or that I talk to feel as if they're reaching for a new brass ring every time they come around. And pretty soon they've got all these brass rings and ideas for their business and ways in which they can make money. And everybody they talk to comes up with, oh, you're doing that. This is what you should do. And so that's another idea. And pretty soon they've got 14 or 15 different product ideas and ways they can make money and things they want to do. And they're basically just throwing spaghetti at the wall to see what's going to stick, who's going to buy what, instead of saying, of all of these different ideas, this is the one that's going to be my moneymaker. This is where I'm going to start. And working on that idea, taking that idea to market, finding ways to learn what you're going to learn as an early entrepreneur through that first product, and then bring in other ones that make sense along the way. And to your point, that singular focus of getting that one thing to market is far more effective than trying to do it with 2 or 3 or 5 different product lines and options, or geographic markets, or different types of sports. If you had tried to do soccer and pickleball and auto racing and some of those kind of things all at the same time, because we're one sports nation instead of one soccer nation, it'd be a completely different world for you, trying to do all of those things at once. So getting those blinders on and focusing in, I like that as an approach.
Yeah.
Talk to me about what's holding you back today. Obviously you're on, knock on wood, on a good path for 2027. But what is holding back your process or holding back One Soccer Nation today?
It's another good question. No one's asked me that one. I would say capital.
Fair enough.
So capital can make you move way faster for sure. So um,
What would you do
you
with it?
know,
Right? There's a question
yeah,
too. The one thing I always ask my clients when they say, "Oh, I just need more money to be able to make things happen. I need an infusion of money to make this happen." Great. You're not going to get an investor to invest in you unless you tell them how their money's going to make more money. So I would ask you the same thing. Capital. What would you do with it if you had it?
yeah, that's a great question. So I mean, going through the process with pitching investors and getting, a lot of no's, hundreds of
Sure.
no's, and uh, you know, 4 yeses, and a few more coming down the pipeline. Um, all those no's, you start to build on those. On, okay, why is it a no for now? Okay, because the presentation's not that good. Okay, let's update the presentation. Another no from another investor. Why is it a no? Oh, you guys don't have a financial model. Okay, put together a financial model. So we're building and building and building. So um, from all those no's, we've continuously built and made sure that we're creating a strong pitch. So that's where we are now. And we're very close. I would say we're 30, 40 days off from having a very strong pitch to go ahead and secure that, raise that capital that we need. So we're still going down it right now. And then to answer your question, what we do with the capital is everything that we've laid out in the presentation, in our financial model, and how we're going to make money, and as well as our legal document, our PPM of disclosing the offering, how much we're raising, where the funds go, use of funds, the risks that are coming with this investment, etc. So, yeah, I mean we've done our work. We're still working. We do have a plan for that, for the funds, and an ROI for it. So yeah, I hope that answers your question. I mean, I'd love to just share some stuff with you, Russ, too, in the audience. In regards to revenue that can be generated from the investment of soccer. I mean, specifically on the soccer side, you're talking about ticket sales, which is dictated by the stadium size. So if you have a 5,000 seat stadium, obviously it's not going to be filled at 100% capacity,
Mm-hmm.
but you have that 5,000 seats. So ticket sales is a top revenue. Sponsorship, if you own the stadium, which is important, you can have naming rights, sponsorship, which is another big revenue, as well as merchandise. So those would, I would say, are the top three. And then you got food and beverage. Um, I'd say those are the top revenues. Player transfers, which is huge in Europe. Players can range anywhere between a million to 100
Sure.
million. You're starting to see that happen more in the US. I mean, obviously the MLS is doing it, but when we're talking about the USL, you have more and more players selling for $1 million plus over to from transferring from the US to Europe. So there's that gold mine per se. Um, and then the real estate side, which I'm not the expert in, but there's revenue on that side as well. Um, so we, to answer your question, we do have a plan for the cash or the capital.
Well, again, I mean, you talk about the real estate even at the end. I mean, it's having an entire team of people that can help to execute on the vision that you have, right? Because they are an expert in real estate or an expert in retail or an expert in food and beverage or whatever the case may be, to be able to make those things happen, to take the numerous business models that are a part of this experience that you're now creating. Again, it's not just the stadium, it's the experience of the entire place. Have those numerous people be able to take care of the various aspects of it. I think it's a great lesson to come out of it. The use of the money will align with those visions and those plans. The pitch, again, the pitch, being able to get somebody on that road with you is such a critical piece of it. The one thing I see that a lot of entrepreneurs, you probably found this along the way, so you can probably echo it, but a lot of times the entrepreneurs will go out there and they'll begin the pitch by selling themselves, right? Which is good. We want to know that you're worthwhile. But frankly, from my perspective at least, if I'm an investor, I have to agree about the problem first. I have to agree that there's an issue that you're going to help me solve first. Right? I have to agree that there is a gap, in your case, a gap of MLS presence in a certain geographic area, and that you're willing to fill that gap, and you can do so. Your solution makes sense with how you can address that market successfully. Then I care about the team. As long as I agree that you have the solution to a problem that exists, then I care about whether or not the team can make it happen. If I believe in those three things, then we should be good to go.
Yeah, I mean that's a great point. I think hopefully I understand it properly. If we look at San Diego, for example, there was San Diego Loyola,
Mm-hmm.
in USL Championship. They got wiped out by San Diego, the San Diego team, FC and MLS. I'm not. Were you aware of that?
I am not. No, I
No.
figured it's something we'd have to check out afterwards.
Yeah. So there was an existing USL Championship team that had been there for a few years in San Diego, and MLS recently announced. I mean, this is about last year or so now, that they're going to drop an MLS team, wiped out the USL Championship team. So I think if I'm understanding your question properly, um, you're basically saying making sure that there's a right certain amount of distance between, for example, the market that we're looking at, that the MLS, the market that MLS is in, that or the city that we're looking at is a certain distance away from that MLS team, correct?
Just that there is a need to that market, right? Whether it's distance, whether it's in, I mean, we see cities with multiple teams in them, and they still can succeed together. So the question is, where are the dollars that are going to be put towards coming to see your soccer team? Is it because there's a lack of soccer teams? Is it because there's a lack of sporting events? Is it because the golf courses in the area have closed down and people need something else to do on a Sunday afternoon? Whatever the case may be, where are the dollars going to come from to actually service your plan? And in doing so, you have a plan to give those people something of value for that money, and you are the right team to do it. That's what the pitch really needs to come down to.
Absolutely, yeah. So I mean, in regards to the market that we're looking at currently, is there's no major sports teams within this market. So we talk about like the top five sports: NFL, NHL, NBA, MLS, MLB. Um, Obviously not in that exact order, but
Sure.
yeah, those sports leagues, though they don't exist in the market that we're looking at. And the market size, city population is about 115,000 people. So it's way too small for Major League Soccer to have interest in. They're more so looking at markets that are a million plus.
Right.
Um, And then the we're looking at the east side of the United States. So to kind of give it away a little bit, but the it's a very wealthy region, and there's an existing MLS, USL Championship, USL 1 teams all around this area, around the city that we're looking at. It's right in the middle of, between of all the successes of all the other clubs. So it's gonna, if we do get this market, it's going to create some nice rivalries. There's already existing
Yeah.
success that's literally right beside us, and it's a market that's thriving within soccer. And really where we are. I mean, again, to go back to just your last question is the next steps for us. And I want to say this too. With everything I've learned, it's so important to be very clear with your plan because like the investors, the architects, the league, everyone's so smart and sophisticated. They map out everything. So that's how we've become
Yeah.
that. We make sure that we plan for everything. We map it. You got to map it all out. There's no. You got to think about everything. There's no ifs or buts. It's like you got to have all your ducks in a row. Cross your T's, dot your I's. That's one of the ones I learned. And you know, we're very clear on our next steps with the raising capital process. So if the city's interested after the pitch, and we lock the city down, um, then we're going to figure out how big their appetite is. How big can we make this project? Because project can range anywhere between 10 million plus to $1 billion project. One of the examples I can give is Livingstone,
Mm.
um, or Steve Livingstone, sorry, uh, for Sporting Jacks, a USL Championship team in Florida, Jacksonville, $1 billion project, mixed use development. It's on our YouTube channel, the One Soccer Nation podcast. I asked him, was he planning to have his project that big? In the beginning, he said no. It just grew. It evolved. They're building a 10,000 plus seated stadium. They're doing soccer. They're doing 365-day programming in the stadium. Football is going to be played. Lacrosse is going to be played. Concerts.
Yeah.
100 acres plus the whole shebang. So really, when we come back to our project, the city, what's their appetite? How big can we make this project? What assets can we acquire? What land can we acquire? How much resources are they willing to put to it? What financing tools can we use from the city to have a public private partnership to fund the project? What grants are available for the project that we're looking at, etc. So that's the first step. If the city's on board, perfect. If they're not, from our understanding, there's no point of going to that market. We're going to have to pivot and look at another market and start over again, per se. But at least now we have a template in regards to the presentation. We have a financial model, which is going to basically stay the same, adjust to the city population, per se. And we're off to the races again. But I would approach it a bit different because the league announces markets that they have partners with the city that have announced that the city's interested to bring professional soccer. So we're kind of doing it from scratch, per se. But if the city's on board, then that's perfect. And then the second step is for us to dive right into negotiations with the league, which we've already had this conversation, but we'll have more leverage.
Mm-hmm.
Is the market rights. So acquiring the market rights from the league to have a certain amount of time, whether that's a year or 2 years, whatever is negotiated in the terms, to then have that time frame gives us the opportunity to move on to the next step, which is the third, to secure a primary team owner, which has to be, I think for USL 1, it's a 10 million net worth individual that's willing to own 35%. And I think USL Championship is a $30 million net worth individual willing to own 35% of the team. And then the remaining equity can be acquired from other investors, family offices, VCs, etc. So we're very clear on those three next steps.
Good.
And then, sorry, Russ, I feel like I went off on a tangent, but what was your question?
We were talking about the pitching process and some of that, but I think you got to it. I think you kind of got to the kind of that next step and what you guys bring to the table and how you present that value throughout the process. So before I let you go, Kareem, is there anything that I haven't touched on that you want to throw out to our viewers Obviously, we're going to have you back on when the time comes to get ready to launch, and get ready to make some of those announcements so we can start to build some momentum for you. But
Yep.
for now, anything you want to throw out there that you haven't yet?
No, I mean, yeah, I do. I really appreciate you taking the time, Russ. This was amazing. I love to share the story, share experiences, startups, um, with everyone. Um, what I would say is have passion for what you're doing. Oh, this is what I wanted to say as well. I
Right?
mentioned before. We're living in such a cool time where we have access to the internet and social media, where you can become an expert in whatever you want to become an expert in, and build a community and make a living off of it. Social media. So there's so many things. Shiny uh, object syndrome per se.
Yeah.
But I'd say again, my unsolicited advice would be to pick one thing and really focus and become the known person in that thing. Know everything about it, the ins, the outs, everything, and eventually it should bear fruit. Um, so again, that's what I would share. Um, really become focused and remove everything else, and then everything else should follow. And for me, that's what I've been able to do is really. Thankfully, I've always had that passion just because growing up playing it.
Yeah.
But then to dive into the business side is I've enjoyed it way more than playing, to be honest. And I still love playing. I actually play now, still immensely fun. But being on the business side and understanding the ins and outs, and again, for me, I have that hunger to learn and to try to understand everything, all different aspects of it that bring this thing together. So that's the unsolicited advice that I would share. But again, Russ, I really appreciate you taking the time for having me on your podcast, and look forward to once we get this thing off the ground to having you come out to a game and having a drink and watching a
No,
game.
that'll be great. Yeah, and I agree. I mean, that it's all about that passion and pursuing something that you love. So, Kareem, I thank you. It's been a pleasure. That's a wrap for this episode of Legacy Unscripted. If today's conversation sparked something in you, don't just let it sit. Take action today to build your future. Make sure to subscribe, leave us a review, and share this with someone who may need to hear it. And if you've got a story or something that you want to share or something that you want to connect about, you know where to find me. Until next time, keep it real, keep it bold, and keep living your legacy.